Good evening, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Amendment Public Hearing. This evening, the Board will consider the adoption of amendments to the Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Board will first consider the adoption of two small-scale amendments to the county's future land use map. The Board will then proceed to consider amendments to the future land use map, which have previously been transmitted by the Board to the state agency for review, and the Board will consider a major modification to the plan development zoning, which is related to CPA 1812. I will now turn the meeting over to the Planning Commission staff. Ms. Zornita.
Good evening, Melissa Zornita, Planning Commission. Tonight we'll get started with our small scale amendments. The first one is HC CPA 1814. That one was actually withdrawn by the applicant, but we wanted to announce it here tonight in case anybody showed up from the public notice. HC A1 was 1814 was withdrawn. So then we'll turn to A.2 HC CPA 1819, which will be presented by Yanika.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yanika Mills, Planning Commission staff. I am here to present to you HC CPA 1819. This is a proposed, probably initiated plan amendment located within the southern portion of Hillsborough County, specifically located along 33rd Street southeast south of College Avenue. The site is located within the urban service area as well as the Ruskin community planning area. Again, this is a probably initiated plan amendment. It's small in scale at approximately 5 acres. And the future land use designation change before you this evening is to change the future land use designation from suburban mixed use 6 to community mixed use 12. Here is an aerial of the site looking north here. To give you some context of the area, here's the site. We have 33rd Street southeast here, a pocket of residential here. East of the site, we have Interstate 75, College Avenue to the north. We have Ruskin Inn west of the site. Again, looking west, we have that Ruskin Hotel. And looking north across College Avenue, we have a large shopping center. Again, currently, the future land use designation is suburban mixed use 6. And again, the request before you this evening is to change the future land use designation to community mixed use 12. Impacts of the proposed future land use designation change. Currently, up to 30 units could be allowed on the site. Or a maximum of 54,000 square feet of non-residential entitlements. The impact of the proposed CMU 12 would increase the residential as well as non-residential entitlements. If approved, up to 60 units could be developed on the site, or over 109 square feet of non-residential entitlements. Another major change for the proposed future land use designation change. The site would no longer have to meet locational criteria if changed to community mixed use 12. The proposed future land use designation change is consistent with the following policies. Objective 34, which states that future land use plan designations within the Interstate 75 corridor should be developed with urban level intensities. Goal 12, Objective 12-1, of the community design component within the future land use element speaks to compatibility of new uses should relate to the majority of the area. In the proposed future land use designation change is also consistent with the Ruskin community plan, which sees College Avenue as developing out with commercial, office, and residential uses. With regard to any agency comments, there were no objections received from the reviewing agencies. And planning, oops, what did I do? Here we go. Sorry. Planning Commission recommended that HCCPA 19 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Very good. Thank you very much. Is the applicant here? So state your name. Good evening. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening. My name is David Wright of TSP Companies. Our address is P.O. Box 1016, Tampa, Florida. I'm the applicant for CPA 1819, which is a privately initiated request. The subject property is currently within the SMU 6 future land use category, and the request is to change the CMU 12 future land use category. Subject property is located within the urban service area, making the request consistent with Objective 1 of the comprehensive plan, which directs new growth to occur within the urban service area. Further, proposed amendment is supported by the purpose of the urban service area boundary as described in the comprehensive plan as designated area for the location of urban level development. The requested plan amendment does not conflict with the adopted vision for the Ruskin community and is consistent with Objective 18 and Policy 18.1 of the future land use element. The Ruskin community plan goals support well-designed developments and recommends a design overlay for College Avenue. Therefore, the CMU 12 future land use designation is appropriate as it promotes integrated site plans and the prohibition of strip development by requiring rezoning to occur by approved plan development. Future land use element Objective 34 encourages urban level intensities and mixed use development patterns within the Interstate 75 corridor, and the subject property is located at the interchange of I-75 and State Road 674. And it is intended to provide for development, specifically hotels and a restaurant that would serve the surrounding land uses in the immediate vicinity, such as the South Shore Corporate Park, home to the Amazon Procurement Center, the Ruskin campus of the Hillsborough Community College, and other intense commercial, industrial, and research uses. The Planning Commission determined the request to be consistent with and to further the objectives of the comprehensive plan, goals, objectives, and policies on January 14th of this year. We noticed the surrounding property owners and neighborhood associations, and we were not contacted with anyone with any objections. Based on the submitted documentation, the Planning Commission's finding of consistency, and my testimony here today, I respectfully request approval. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address CPA 1819? Anyone wishing to address CPA 1819? What's your pleasure, board? Motion by Commissioner Merman, second by Commissioner Smith to approve CPA 1819. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
CPA 1810.
Actually, next up should be 1820.
I'm sorry, 1820. I'm dyslexic. Yeah, I'm trying to get out of here. I'm trying to get out of here. I'm sorry.
No
It's a
problem.
long week.
Good afternoon, Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1820. This is a 9.4 acre site in the northwestern portion of the county. It's a privately initiated map amendment. It has frontage to the north on Lutz Lake Fern Road and to the east on Sun Lake Boulevard. It's in the urban service area and within the Lutz Community Plan boundary. This is an aerial of the site. As you can see, the majority of the site is agricultural pasture land. There is a home on the northeast corner, and that is a separate parcel, and it's been aggregated into the project area. The surrounding area consists of a mixture of suburban scale subdivisions and some rural homes on large home sites. To the southeast, you see an office park as areas transitioning to more intense uses. And then further to the south, there are more subdivisions of a more intense suburban scale. Currently, the site's developed, has an adopted land use category of residential 1 in the light green, as is the area to the south. There's residential 4, residential 2. It's just kind of a mixture. I noted that to the south of the site, there were a number of plan amendments. The most intense is to the south to residential 9, residential 1 to residential 9. This happened in 2015. Others went from residential 1 to residential 4, similar to the surrounding area. The applicant is requesting a change to residential 6, and that's the bright yellow. While it seems to be a spot in that area, it allows development comparable to the development in the surrounding area. And again, it shows the intensity increasing based on that plan amendment. And if you were to go further south, there's a mixture of more intense uses. The impact of this change would introduce an increase in the number of units from 9 units per acre to 56 units per acre. And it would allow an increase from 30,000 square feet of non-residential use to 175,000 square feet. Both have a FAR of 0.25, whichever is least intense. Staff reviewed it for consistency and found that it encouraged higher densities in the urban service area, which would maximize capital investments in this area. It promotes additional infill development in appropriate areas, and it allows for compatible and comparable scale development. It was distributed for agency review, and the school board did note that Martinez Middle School and Steinbrenner High School do not have the capacity for the proposed development and would require some sort of adjustment of boundaries to accommodate that in the future. The Planning Commission staff, or actually, I apologize, the Planning Commission recommends that HCP A 1820 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough's comprehensive plan and forwards this recommendation to the board. And that concludes my presentation. I'm really happy to answer any questions you have.
See no questions at this time. Applicant here. Good evening, sir. State your name. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and board members, Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mary Highway, Tampa, Florida, 33618, representing the applicant and the owner of this request. I think Krista did a fine job, summary-oriented. This request was skipped from the last cycle to make sure that we had a contract purchase agreement in place. We are surrounded by a number of non-residential uses. My client has owned this property since 1978. It was approved in 2015 for a charter school K through 8. Unfortunately, the road improvement requirements at that time were almost $1 million. So that school has now been relocated across Dale Mabry, and this site remains undeveloped. My client has a strong commitment to facilitating a plan that works for the neighborhood. He's been offered a number of contract sale agreements that were not of his liking. This one is for an assisted living facility and a skilled nursing component. We have reached out to the neighbors. We have reached out to Lutz Civic Association. This is in the urban service area. It does have water and sewer. It's at the intersection, of a signalized intersection of 2 major roadways. The 22-acre comp plan amendment in 2015 are now townhomes to the southwest. We have the equestrian facility to the south, owned by Ruth Gimbel. We asked her to join us if she wanted to upgrade. She indicated she may do that in the future, but right now is laying fallow. However, is not opposed. We reached out to the neighbors to the west, that subdivision, Appian Way. No objection at all. In fact, strong support for an assisted living facility. We have agreed to work with the neighbors. As you know, this is not a zoning hearing. This is a venue only for the comp plan. The Res 4, unfortunately, does not allow appropriate number of beds. Our client contract purchasers need in excess of 200 beds. The Res 4 would not get us to that bed count. So we're pleased with staff support, pleased with the recommendation. Certainly we have no opposition that we're aware of. Talked to a few of the neighbors. One of them is here tonight who lives abutting and wants to make sure traffic and buffering are addressed as well as retention. We certainly will provide a factual basis for that when we go through the PD rezoning process. I think it's a reasonable use. I think it's certainly consistent with the comp plan policies. And my client respectfully asks you to support this request. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
See no questions. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address CPA 1820? Good evening, ma'am. Just state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Jerry Odell, and I live at, well, my address is P.O. Box 7249, Wesley Chapel, Florida. And I own the property that is in the middle of that section. And we are not in opposition of the plan with the intention that it is rezoned under the conditions of an assisted living facility. We are not encouraging the idea of another 40 to 50 houses in that area, but an assisted living facility with minimal traffic and with planned retention is certainly acceptable to us. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address CPA 1820? Anyone else? I have a motion by Commissioner Merman.
Second.
Second by Commissioner White to approve CPA 1820. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I think it's just important for the woman who spoke, just for the record, that you understand that we cannot, we're strictly voting as regards to the density, but can we just address the fact that we're been told that this will be a residential facility, and is that a guarantee that that's how that land will be developed?
No, Commissioner, you're correct that the residential 6 category, while it would allow an assisted living facility, it would allow a number of other residential uses and even some non-residential uses because this property is located at an intersection. And so at this stage that we're just looking at the change from the residential 1 to the residential 6 and all of the broad uses that could be allowed in there.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
So going to a senior facility or adult facility would address the lack of school capacity in the area, correct? At this point?
Yes.
Without having to redirect
Yes,
to other
if
schools?
that was what they came in and asked for as part of their rezoning, that certainly would not require any school capacity.
Okay, and forgive me if I'm not asking a stupid question, but it does appear as though it's outside the service area, or I can't really tell. There's a line there, but I couldn't tell whether it's inside or outside.
Yes, it's hard to tell from the maps, but they are inside the urban
They are,
service area.
okay.
Yes.
I knew it was right there, but
It
I
is.
couldn't
They're
tell
right
whether
next
on which
to it,
side it was.
nearby,
So thank you
yes.
very much, that's all I needed.
Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to clarify that this will have to be come back through rezoning. Is that correct, Adam?
Yes, that's correct.
And we could, of course, the conditions at that point can be more implemented into the request.
That's correct. That would be the appropriate time to deal with buffering and screening and any design compatibility issues would be at the zoning stage.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to approve CPA 1820. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I just would, again, but there is no condition that we could require that it be developed to be this type of facility.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
We have a motion and a second to approve CPA 1820. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
We now need a motion and a vote to approve the ordinance for adoption for a small-scale plan amendment for CPA 1819 and CPA 1820. I have a motion by Commissioner Merman, second by Commissioner Overman. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
We're now moving to plan amendments previously transmitted by the Board for State Agency Review. First one is CPA 1810, which I tried to get to earlier.
Evening, Commissioners. Will Augustine, Planning Commission staff. The next agenda item before you is Hillsborough County's Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1810. This subject site is a vacant parcel of 16.3 acres. It is located at the southwest quadrant of 90th Street and Causeway Boulevard. Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1810 is a privately initiated future map amendment that is within the urban service area and is part of the Greater Palm River Community Planning Area. The subject site is vacant, parcel of 16.3 acres. Causeway Boulevard in this area has been improved to a 4-lane divided roadway with sidewalks and bike lanes. Causeway Boulevard falls under the jurisdiction of the Florida Department of Transportation. 90th Street is a local road. The amendment site is currently residential 9 on the adopted future land use map for unincorporated Hillsborough County. The area north of Causeway Boulevard is primarily residential 9. The applicant is requesting a residential 20 land use classification change at this location. The proposed change would allow a potential build-out of up to 326 dwelling units, which is an additional 180 dwelling units. The floor area ratio for residential 20 would increase from 0.50 to 0.75. Hillsborough County future land use element calls for the location of higher density along transit emphasis corridors, potential transit emphasis corridors, and collector and arterial roadways. Causeway Boulevard is a arterial roadway and perhaps a potential future transit corridor, as it is the main roadway running east-west through Palm River. With regard to agency reviews, the school district of Hillsborough County noted that Spoto High School would be over capacity with the proposed change in density. This amendment has gone to state regional review with no objections received. There were no further objections by any other agencies. Finally, the Planning Commission finds that Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1810 is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Is the applicant available?
No, I should be that one. Yep, that's me. All right, what do I do? Click here? Oh, click right there? Okay. Good evening. I'm Kevin Manier, representing the applicants, and I appreciate your staff working with us on our project here in Palm River. We feel we're a classic infill project. Causeway Boulevard operates at level of surface C, and there's plenty of capacity. And to encourage new development, in 2005, the county spent $5.5 million in community reinvestment tax funds to upgrade the water and sewer system right up front. There is no intrusion to any established neighborhoods. The block is isolated with a TICO corridor and an FDOT pond along the west and a county park along the east. A large ditch runs along the south, so there's no intrusion to that established neighborhood. Here are the parcels we are redeveloping. It's not vacant. It does have some houses on it. Large lots with well and septic, completely surrounded by projects on public water and sewer. Here's the comprehensive plan. Causeway is an intensive commercial and mixed-use corridor with heavy commercial uses to the west, that's in the red, and master plan communities to the east, that's purple. And to the north, Mr. Augustine's map doesn't reflect it, but there's another area that's also designated Res 20 across the street from us. We feel we're a transition to these heavy commercial uses to the west. These are our neighbors to the north. All are used for commercial businesses. We are also consistent with the comprehensive plan, which encourages infill in the urban service area and the Greater Palm River Community Planning Area, which encourages infill and redevelopment. Finally, there may be a concern about school capacity. While the elementary and the middle schools are fine, at the moment, Spoto High is over capacity based on concurrency reservations. It's not over capacity today, it's only based on reservations. Depending on our mix of units and when we're ready to build, if there is still a capacity issue, we may impact it. And up on the screen is the comment sheet from the school board staff. She states, and I have copies of it I can hand to you all if you all want to look at it, that they might have to modify the boundaries of Spotto or will otherwise have to address this as part of our site plan approval. This isn't done at the comprehensive plan stage, but needs to be addressed as part of site plan permitting. We fully understand this, and as part of permitting of the property, we will work with the school board to ensure that there's no impacts or issues. So in conclusion, we feel we're a textbook infill project. We're consistent, compatible, infrastructure in place. We have no opposition. Causeway operates at a level of service C. There's plenty of utility capacity. $5.5 million of money was spent to upgrade the utility. We're well buffered and screened, and we feel we serve as a transition from heavy commercial and industrial uses, a classic infill project. And the planning commissioners recognized this when they approved us unanimously at their hearing. And with that, I can answer questions, if you have any.
Thank you, sir. I see no questions at this particular point in time. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address CPA 1810? Anyone wishing to address CPA 1810? Motion by Commissioner Merman. Second by Commissioner White and Kemp to approve CPA 1810. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Now I need a motion of adoption of a future land use map amendment and related major modification to the plan development.
Sorry,
Well, that's on my-
you're getting ahead. That's,
Yeah,
that's
it's just not-
the next step for the next
Not
few.
your slide.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
put it in the wrong place.
What you
That
hit?
wasn't clear enough.
What
I
did you hit?
apologize. But that's the next
been
set
at
of
the
two
bottom.
applications,
Should've
the
been at the
following
bottom.
two.
Should have been at the bottom. Okay. CPA 1812.
Thank you. Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting CPA 1812. This is a 16.6 acre site in the Brandon area. It's a privately initiated map amendment. It is in the urban service area and within the Brandon community planning area. Here's an aerial of the site. Currently, it operates as a driving range / putt-putt golf entertainment center. Adjacent to it, to the south, is a shopping center and additional shopping centers across Lumpson, which is this major highway. This is Kings Avenue. These are retail offices and somewhat of an apartment hybrid. Across Kings, to the east is suburban scale residential. The site's currently designated residential 12. As you can see, a predominant portion of this area is designated residential 12. There's residential 6 across Kings Avenue, and to the south it's residential 6 as well. The applicant's requesting residential 20 in this area. There are some intense uses in the area in terms of villas up in the northwest corner. It's really a mixture, but it's quite intense as you extend down Lumsden Avenue. Okay, the impact of this change would reduce the maximum number of units from 199 to 33. I'm sorry, I think that's incorrect. Let's see here. I'm sorry, yeah, there's missing a 3. It's going to increase the number of units from 199 units to 333 units, and both allow up to 175. Yeah, it was missing a 3. I apologize. A gremlin got in there. It'll allow up to 175,000 square feet, or 0.50 currently, and it would increase to 0.75 FAR. Review agencies generally had no objections. The transportation analysis indicated that 1,006 trips and does not exceed the level of service of D. Transit is available via the Flex Brandon and the 25 LX in this area. Planning Commission recommends that CPA 1812 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and recommends that this be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Applicant?
Good evening, Clayton Bricklemeyer Law Group. I'm going to quickly introduce our planner, who's going to be followed by our transportation engineer, and then I'll just wrap up.
Good evening, Alexis Crespo. I'm a certified planner with Waldrop Engineering representing the applicant. My address is 9432 Camden Field Parkway. I want to thank staff for their thorough presentation. I just want to hit a couple of the key planning concepts with this proposal to redesignate the property to Res 20. What's on your screen are some images from the Brandon Corridors and Mixed Use Activity Center study that the Planning Commission has undertaken over the past years and is now implementing Phase 2. So I want to emphasize that in addition to being entirely consistent with the comprehensive plan, your directive to locate more intensive areas of growth within that urban service area and direct growth away from your eastern, more rural areas. Along with that, the plan is very consistent with what is intended for the Brandon community specifically. You can see we're in the urban general designation, right there in the heart of the orange and yellow areas, which is where you want to direct that intensity along the key corridors, and then also within an intended activity center at Lumsden and Kings Avenue. Your staff has touched on the various goals, objectives, and policy that this application is consistent with. In addition to the plan, they've also noted that this has been reviewed by your state agencies and they have no comments or objections regarding the change. It's all good to talk about urban infill and redevelopment, but we know along with that compatibility and protecting existing communities is very important. And we have worked diligently on that since we came before you in October to work with our adjacent neighbors and ultimately getting a letter of support from La Viva community, which is to our south and west. That's included in the companion major modification application. We worked with them to limit unit count, increase buffers, and build things into the application that they found acceptable. So we're very appreciative of that letter that they provided. So with that, we just want to reiterate the request is entirely consistent with your comprehensive plan. This is the type of development you want to see within your urban service area and is directly supported by your community planning efforts. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Good evening. I'm Steve Henry, Links & Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. We'll just bring a couple things on transportation from you. The first, just wanted to highlight, this is actually from your staff report that show that both Kings and Lumsden in these segments operate at acceptable level of service and would continue to operate acceptable level of service with the project. In addition, we did look at the impact of this plan amendment on Lumsden, see what the impact was. And based on that, we would add about, the current plan would add about 31 trips in the peak direction, peak hour, which is about 1.1% of the capacity. When we add, that was quick, 3 minutes.
You get 3 minutes per representative. So you should have had 9 minutes. You had 3 representatives there, so give them 6 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so the green represents the existing plan. The proposed represents the PM peak hour for the proposed plan of 333 units, which would be about 52 trips for about 1.8% of the capacity. So an insignificant impact on the roadway. And then in addition to that, the developer is making operational improvements to Kings. Currently today, there's a fair number of cars that come up to the driveway where the driving range is and make a U-turn. Because of the width of Kings, they're actually running up over the curb and onto the grass. So what we're proposing to do to try to help with that situation is build a left turn lane to meet all county standards at the first median opening just north of Lumsden at Sunset Drive, and then also build a bulb out on the west side of Kings. That allows then people to make a U-turn safer and easier than they currently do today with running up over the curbs. That concludes my presentation unless you've got any questions. Thank you.
Clayton Bricklemeyer again. Trying really hard not to repeat what's been said. This is a rare opportunity to have a greenfield development in this area and to be able to put this density in the urban service area. I think it's fair, and I don't want to put words in Ms. Zornita's mouth, but at Planning Commission she did say that if they had done a review of this area, this is the sort of density that they would be looking for in this area. It's appropriate, it's walkable workforce housing, there's retail that you can walk to, which I think is what this board has been asking for. I did want to spend just 2 seconds. Edward Rose and Sons is my client. They're the buyer here. They would be the developer here. They do not sell. They've sold one property in 25 years. No properties ever. They don't sell. They're the developer. They're going to build it and they're going to manage it. That is what leads to the extensive work we did with the neighbors. That's what brings you this kind of project. I hope that we have allayed any fears as far as anything that you all may be worried about. I think that this is a really good opportunity to do something solid with this piece of property, and we would ask for your approval. And the whole team's available for questions. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on CPA 1812? This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on CPA 1812? Okay. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you all for coming back and spending quite a bit of time making sure we understand these projects. Previously, we had taken a look when I met with actually everybody, it seems like. I noticed that there's opportunities to get to the Brandon Parkway if that land ever becomes available to build a trail along a really pretty walkable area. And I noticed that the housing community next to you, even though they have a wall between where you are and where they are, there's a nice road that can bring you around to the shopping mall without having to go out on either of those two roads. Or at least it looked like that in one of the illustrations that the Planning Commission representative showed. So while that's not part of your plan at the moment, it should be nice if that could happen. Because what we do want to try to do in the future is create as much cross traffic as we can, avoid the major arteries where available, and to recognize that NIMBY isn't against the law. But I do value the work that's being done here, and so thank you very much for your presentation.
Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Do we have somebody from the county transportation department who could answer a question?
Yeah, we have Mike Williams here if the question is on the zoning, and we have Matt Williams,
My
Matt Lewis
question is
here.
about the intersection at Kings and Lumsden and that U-turn business with the bulb out. How much help will that be to this? The biggest problem with this to me is that intersection at Kings and Lumsden. That's an F now. How much help will this bulb out and system and the extra lane be for that?
So, again, Mike Williams with Development Services staff. What's happening today is, and particularly in the mornings, the northbound left, it's actually dual lefts there, really backs up and queues back. And so what people are doing, they're going straight through the intersection to avoid that. They go up, and the first opportunity to make a U-turn is in front of the current site, the driving range site. And so what Steve was talking about is, because the road is not very wide, they can't make U-turns very well, and they're beating up the curb and going on the grass and what have you. And so this will help facilitate those U-turns. Will it encourage more people to do that because it's easier? Maybe, probably, some, which, you know, anything that takes people out of that intersection, and particularly that northbound left, would help.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be, make it suddenly a higher, better level of service? No, it's not gonna help that much, but, it'll probably make it a little bit better.
Thank you. Thanks.
Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I just wanted for clarification. It looks like on September 20th, we had from the La Viva HOA, a petition signed by 48 people in opposition, but then I guess later than that, you've talked with them, and then you've got a letter endorsing the project?
Yes, ma'am. The letter's from December, and it's not a super savvy group of people, so they filed the letter. It's in the zoning file. It's not in the comp plan file, but yes, December 18th, the HOA gave us a letter of support, which we were happy to receive.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Back to the transportation question. Is the reason individuals or drivers making an illegal turn in order to make a left at the previous intersection because there's no dedicated left turn lane at that point? Or is it, I mean, do they have a dedicated left to help people make the left that they're now going up and doing a U-turn?
So the location where they would be building the left and the U-turn that they're trying to facilitate is actually signed as no U-turns today.
To your mic on, please.
Is your question whether there's a dedicated left turn at the signal?
At Kings and Lumsden.
Oh, my mistake, I'm sorry. Northbound, there's actually two lefts. There's dual lefts at King, northbound.
On Kings?
On Kings, turning to go
Left.
westbound on Lumsden. There's dual
Okay.
lefts there.
There's two lanes that make a left and they're still going straight and doing an illegal U-turn?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Just
It's a
keep
lot
taking
of
the
volume.
barrier all the way to whatever the next street is, you know? But, yeah, it's unfortunate that we have people that drive illegally that's causing a problem for this property, but, yeah, we need to redesign that road, yes. I'm okay with that, so thank you.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. This proposed project's in my district. There's a lot of compatible development types in the area. With respect to its proximity to the Brandon Parkway, which feeds right into the expressway, you can think of that in terms of yards versus miles, so it's very close. It's a textbook infill development site. So when we're thinking in terms of holding the line on the urban service area, this is the kind of infill development project that we want to support. So I move the item.
Well, we're going to take up the major modification before and then take them up together. Okay. So if there's no more discussion on CPA 1812, we're now moving the major modification 18-1206. Development Service staff.
Commissioners, Michelle Heinrich will give a brief introduction to this item. So it's been to the zoning hearing master. It's got a recommendation of approval from the zoning hearing master and both staffs, and there's no opposition or oral argument filed.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. This is a major modification to a PD that was done in '93. That PD application is 930193. And that PD is currently permitted for a interim golf driving range and then future redevelopment for a townhome project to consist of 180 units. And this major mod is requesting to modify that redevelopment option to instead allow 300 multifamily units. And that does equate to 20 units per acre, which is why it's the companion piece to the CPA comp plan amendment. The site is also to note that the buildings currently for the townhomes are limited to 46 in height, and under this with the multifamily, they're asking to increase that height to 60 feet. The site is located within an area developed with residential, commercial, and cultural institutional uses. Staff's review of the project finds that with the increase in density and building height, compatibility is still achieved. And specifically, some of those reasons were also discussed in the comp plan amendment include there is a proposed setback of 90 feet from all PD boundaries. That exceeds the current setback that the townhomes are required to provide, as well as our RMC 20 standard zoning district. Also, they are meeting or exceeding the required 2-to-1 additional setback for the building height. So they are accounting for that as projects in our standard zoning districts are required to follow. Also, they are providing buffering and screening that meets or exceeds the land development code requirements. They are also reducing the building height, and that's specifically building 3 to, at the request of the neighborhood to the southwest, which was discussed in the comp plan amendment. They are reducing that to a 50-foot maximum height. And also, the area of development, which is the eastern area of the site, will remain the same as currently approved. So the actual development area will remain the same. It's not changing on the parcel. We received no objections from reviewing agencies, and we do recommend approval subject to proposed conditions.
Any discussion on the major modification? Seeing no discussion on the major modification, we need to vote on motion to adopt CPA 1812 and the major modification 18-1206 together. Motion by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Kemp. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Need a motion to approve the ordinance for adoption of the plan amendments, CPA 1810 and CPA 1812. Motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Overman. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Any further discussion? Y'all go home.
Thank you.